that would be really, really good to see everybody in person again and actually get back to some sort of normalcy. So welcome. We've got apologies. I've got an apology from Marilyn Stevens, who unfortunately can't be here tonight. Are there any other apologies for tonight?
If we could just note an apology from the Mayor.
Right.
But we'll need to move and second the apologies from Marilyn.
Okay. Well, I can move it because she gave it to me. So I'll move the apology from Marilyn.
And someone needs to second it.
Can somebody second? Thank you, Cam. Okay, so any declarations of interest on anything on the agenda that anybody has? No declarations of interest? That's great. Okay, I've got papers all over the place here at the moment. Okay, so we shall move into public speaking time. So we do have a public speaker from who's just said they would like to come and speak to us, and it is Joanne Hakaraya, who is a grant application. Joanne, are you there?
Kia ora, Christine. Oh, there I am. I thought couldn't see my video, but I'm on.
Now, Chris, I've got a timer here because Joanne, with public speaking, it's normally at a maximum of 3 minutes and then questions afterwards. So when you're ready, I'll start that. And yeah. You ready now?
Aye.
Awesome. Hopefully you can, I'll start it now.
Kia ora. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou katoa. Thank you for seeing me at short notice. I'm still building relationships as I've moved back to Ōtaki after being away for about 20 years. So I am a rongoa practitioner. Our company is Te Waka Rākau, and we're based in Māori land, in the building of Māori land. And what we're wanting to do is to create or make up rongoa packs for people in need in the community. Things like teas and throat sprays and anything that's going to be of help to the community at this time. We're getting a lot of people into our organisation wanting specific things, and we are unable to keep up with the requests. So that is what I'm talking to in my application about rongoa packs for COVID. Open to questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions of Joanna?
Cam's just put his hand. Cam's just put his hand up.
Cam.
Kia ora, Joanne. Just a quick question. You mentioned that there's Te Waka Roko as a company, but the application states Te Waka Roko Charitable Trust. Is there two organisations here, or is it one and the same? Or can you just please clarify that?
Yes, it is a charitable trust.
Okay, so that's what you're operating under as. So the money goes to the trust, and then the trust uses that to supply the packs.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
So the packs will actually go to help with kai that's going out to the community as well. They'll go together as a package.
Cool. And how do you work out which people to give these packs to?
There is already a list of people that we have, and that's how we've got the list.
So they just put their name down, or is a list of people given to you by another organisation?
Yes, it's a list that's given to us by another organisation. Once they've registered that they've had COVID, then if they ask if they'd like assistance with rongoa, and the ones that say yes is the list that I get.
Tēnā koe.
Okay, so James, you've got a question.
Sorry, I didn't realise we can unmute ourselves. I was waiting to be unmuted. Kia ora, Joanne. Look, I've a bit of experience around rongoa through my involvement on the Māori Economic Development Grants. We've seen a number of applications over the years. And if I understand correctly, this request is not from a commercial sense. It's more about supporting the community, whānau within the community, as opposed to from a company perspective or profitable perspective. Am I right?
Yes, that's right. Nobody is paying for the rongoa packs. They're given as a koha to help them. There's no money exchange at all.
Thank you. The second one is there, with my knowledge of what it is and the application before us, from a board's perspective, there is some information that is lacking a little bit in terms of the application. Is the application time dependent? I'm aware that COVID is within our community now, and last week and last month, so you could argue it's needed now. But if the board was to require some further information to satisfy itself in terms of its community responsibility around handing out ratepayer funds, is it something that could wait over until the next board meeting or not? Well, sorry, which is about 5 to 6 weeks away.
Yes, we could put things in place where the ones that are waiting for it now, definitely we could look at ways of making up packs without the fund. Definitely we could wait until the next meeting. We'd just look at different ways of working that out.
Thank you. And look, we can discuss that as a board. I'm not too sure what the appetite is in terms of supporting the application. The other question that I had was probably more for Ms. McDougall, who I think's probably slipped away to have a bite to eat by the looks of it. Just kidding, Janice. And that's probably more the role that Ngā Hapu Ōtaki and the associated organisations play in regards to COVID recovery within the community. So are we stepping into a space where there is existing support being provided and funding, or is this something that we can legitimately look at in terms of an application, apart from the fact that there's some information that we may still need?
Thanks, Councillor Coots. Kia ora, Joanne. So I can only speak to what I know about the funding arrangements for COVID support within the community. And I guess I'll just preface that with I'm not fully across the specifics of how a number of different organisations in Ōtaki might join in with that response, but I think it highly unlikely that funding this application would be duplicating funding that is already in place through the COVID work stream. If it was, I doubt Joanne would be coming to you guys to seek funding for her work. So certainly it would be, I imagine, enhancing or complementing the existing response. Much of it in Ōtaki, which I understand much of, is very much community-led and community-generated on top of whatever MSD and the DHB is funding.
Thank you, Janice. I don't have any further questions, but I would like to discuss it when we come to the application in terms of what our options are.
Yeah, I have a question. How do you sort out or actually find out who you're going to be sending these packs to?
We've got so we have people that are already that come in for rongoa, and so we're getting registrations through that way. That's pretty much where we're getting our list from. They've got COVID now, so they're in the process of having COVID, and they're concerned, I guess, about the after effects. So that's really what we're looking at, is looking after their health and wellness after COVID.
So you're not linked into, because I mean, I actually tested positive, so I'm on the COVID website thing and everything, and I got a call from my GP, I got a call from the COVID line people. So you're not actually linked into any of those sort of government lines or anything like that. So it's basically just the people that you are in contact with through your business or whatever it is you do.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm not affiliated with any other organisation. It's just the people that come to see me. That's how I'm getting the list of people.
okay, so it's not widely distributed to other people in the Ōtaki community that don't come and see you for other reasons.
Yes, but we're looking at, you know, if we get the fund, we would look at being more accessible to the community.
How would you go about doing that?
We may talk to other organisations of how we can sort of work together, or because we're in Māori land, we have access to the public. The public can come in and we might do a presentation, demonstration, or even a workshop or a seminar to put that information out into the community.
So how approximately, well, just off the top of your head, how many clients, or however you put it, how many people would you have that actually come to you at the moment?
Over the couple of months, it's been about, we've got about 50 to 60 clients at the moment, but it's growing. It's growing just because they're referring other people.
So it's just a personal reference thing, not from the GP or...
No,
okay.
Yeah, personal reference.
Okay, fine. That's all I've got.
Janice has got her hand up.
Who has?
Janice has got her hand up. Janice.
Sorry, I know it's somewhat unusual for a staff member to want to ask a question at this stage, but I think I want to ask a question in anticipation of the conversation the board might then have when it comes time to deliberate on the applications. Joanne, are you working alongside Te Puna Oranga or the Māori Land Charitable Trust's food efforts that are related to COVID? Are there relationships in place there that might send people your way?
Yes, we're in relationships with each other, Māori Land and Te Puna Oranga.
So, I mean, both organisations have slightly different but not unrelated roles in terms of the community support for COVID. So clients that come to them that may be recovering from COVID may well get directed to your organisation by them.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely. Cool. That's how the list is growing.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarification.
Thanks, Janice.
Thank you, Joanne. You can stay or you can leave, whatever you'd like to do. We will discuss it later on in the meeting, and Samara will get back to you with our decision. So you're welcome to stay on as it's a public meeting, but if you don't want to sit through all the other stuff, you don't have to.
Thank you, Christine. I think I will call it a night. I've had a big weekend in Wānanga, so I really appreciate you seeing me at the last minute. And tēnā koutou katoa ngā mihi nui ki a koutou.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. Right. Sorry, guys, I'm a bit of a pickle here. I've got papers sitting all over my desk. A lot easier at Gertrude where I can sort of have things not spread out like I have here. So I've lost track of my agenda. I think that's public speaking time finished. So we can move members' business to the end like we normally do, and
Chris, we'll just need to check if there's any leave of absence.
Oh, did I not do that? I thought I'd done that. Oh, it's not on my little list. Leaves of absence. Well, not Marilyn because she's not there. Anybody got a leave of absence coming up? No. Okie dokie, that's done. Okay, so the little agenda I've got here, which is, I've lost the main one. So we've got next is if we move our members' business later on, we can do consideration of the applications for funding. Now, I can take it that everybody's read them all and gone through them. Does anybody have any queries or questions or problems or whatever with any of the other applications, that one included? So I'm open.
Yeah, I
open
think
to,
they would like to have a.
open to discussion. I'll just mute myself.
James has his hand up, Chris.
Sorry, just trying to bring up the separate file. I think if we could tackle the Rongoa one first, and it does apply to some of the other applications. They're just lacking sufficient information to be fully considered by the board. And look, I asked the question about whether it was time sensitive, but the practical side of me says that, you know, bureaucracy can get in the way of responses, and it is needed now. There are many in our community that have COVID and have had COVID. So I was wondering whether, if there was the desire to support this application, having heard the further information that was in response to some of the questions that we've raised with both elected members and Ms. McDougall, that it's just subject to that additional information coming in, which is essentially just outlining the costs and what that's going towards. And also just double checking with your team, Janice, in terms of the work that they're doing, that there's no concerns raised from them in terms of that funding.
I can give you a view on that. Sorry, I could give you a view on the second question now, if you like. I don't believe that there's any overlap or any concerns around what we're doing. You've already acknowledged, Councillor Coots, earlier in the meeting that there's quite a bit going on in the Rongoa space, and we see this coming through the Māori Economic Development grants program. Sometimes through the iwi partnerships team, we are working with the Rongoa collective across the three art iwi to pull together the maramataka this year with a Rongoa kind of theme. So it's there's an increasing awareness and focus around Rongoa. I'm not concerned that that this is a receipt for a request for funding for something that has already been funded through our operational grants programs, and was reassured when Joanne was able to confirm that they are working with agencies that are funded to provide various parts of the COVID response.
Yes, some of the reason I asked my question there was that we'd also had some earlier smaller chats about whether this was actually going towards a company or whether this is, at the end of the day, going to be a profit thing for her. So that's why I got her to confirm that it was a charitable trust, because I got slightly concerned when she said the Te Waka Roko company. And I was like, oh, hang on, that just, you know, you're starting to go down the wrong track there. But if it is still through the charitable trust, I don't have any issues with it. It does give an alternative for the people that don't want mainstream, you know, medicine or packs, and some people may be more comfortable going through a charitable trust such as this. Like what Councillor Coots says, there's no costs involved. So are they being given all these items that are going into these packs for free? Or that's something I'd like clarification on, is why are there no costs involved? Because if you have, you know, if you're asking for money, surely there's some costs that you're trying to cover.
Shelley has her hand up, Chris.
It's Shelley, go for it.
Yep.
To me, it seems like there's probably a personal business sitting underneath this charitable trust that maybe, I don't know, I'd like to know who's making the products, and, you know, and that maybe that's not a big deal, because actually it is an alternative. And so maybe it's a good thing that people get alternatives, but that's the kind of impression I get, is that underneath there somewhere, who's making the products that's then selling them to the charitable trust. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't really matter.
You know, to me, there's actually not enough information on, as Shelley says, where it's coming from. who's actually going to get it. There's no outward sort of advertising saying that you can actually come and collect this for free. I just have not a good feeling about it. It just doesn't feel right to me.
I don't have a concern in terms of, like, I don't know Joanne personally, but I know the Hakaraia family, the whānau, and I don't know the connection there, but given that she's based out of Māori land, and by the sounds of it has the connections through to Puna Oranga and so forth, I personally don't have an issue with the application if we receive the additional information. From my perspective, it is a Te Māori or a Māori approach to health and well-being that's different than the likes of others within our community will experience through COVID. It potentially is difficult for funding to be received for these types of approaches. Again, it's not a significant amount of money, although we still need to be diligent in the way we handle rates monies. And so if we were to receive the additional information to satisfy us in terms of what makes the costs up to request the funding, then I'm happy to support it. They're not charging for the packs, they're giving them away. But obviously, I think the point Shelley's making is someone's being paid for them somewhere along the line, but it could be just simply covering the costs. And we don't know that because we don't have that information.
Mm.
So
Okay.
if I could offer a solution that if you guys would like additional information to consider this application, we could move it to the next meeting, and I could seek additional information from Joanne and then resubmit the application into the June meeting, if that would help make the decision.
Sorry, Chris. I would prefer, given the fact that there are people within our community with COVID now, that we approve it subject to that information. We've done that before. If the board is not comfortable for that, then the applicant has said it could tie it over to the next meeting. But I think that probably being a bit tedious on our behalf.
Yeah, I agree with James on that. If we can at least see what these 100 packs are going to cost them, which you would hope would balance with the, that $1,000 that they're putting in there as income, I would be happy to proceed with the application.
And where they're actually going. I mean, there's actually no real information on actually who's actually getting them at the moment. It's just pie in the sky.
You can't ask for the list, Christine. You can't ask for the list.
No, I know
privacy.
you can't. But no, I don't mean a list, but I mean it's just sort of.
If you're doing that, you might as well ask for a list of Amicus people who are getting rides to places.
It could be as simple as a letter or an email from the organisations that are doing the referrals, that they have 56 people that refer and 48, just so that we know there is a list of people. But I have no doubt there is. And I think the fact that they've got a list or a waiting list gives credence to the application, as opposed to producing the product and then waiting for people to ask for it.
Okay. Well, do we want to vote on? Well, we'll wait till the end, or do we want to vote on it now?
Well, shall we deal with this one first? Because I've got some questions on the others as well.
Because the others are reasonably straightforward, I think. But so does somebody?
Famous last words.
What's that?
Famous last words.
Yeah, right. So okay. So does somebody want to move that we actually approve this on the grounds that they give us a little bit more information, and
I'm happy to move subject to the additional information as requested coming in.
Yeah,
and I'll second that.
Okay. Then.
Can I just ask specifically what extra information you're requiring?
If I could, so I can note that down and I'll go back to them if someone could.
So the approximate cost of the 100 Rongoa packs and a confirmation from another body that they have been referring people to this trust. Is that summarise what you said, James?
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, can we just ask too, because it's actually a really good initiative and it's cool that it's here in Ōtaki. So maybe we could ask Joanne for some feedback from people about how they found the natural therapies for us, you know, like what was
We could
it?
do it in the
successful?
accountability report.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe just ask her, you know, can we have some feedback? Because it is a great initiative. Wherever it's coming from, it's great to give alternatives to people. And it's neat that it's coming from our little town, once again, a good initiative. But it would be good to have some feedback, I think.
yeah. Perhaps
Yeah,
request
and
that.
then you're
Request
covering
that.
your bases.
Yeah, request that in the
Chris,
accountability.
Janice has got her
thing.
hand up.
Janice.
Sorry, unmuting myself. My hand was up because I was going to suggest the same thing that Shelley suggested, which was to be specific about what information that you needed. But just in terms of the wording of the resolution, if you are going to make the approval of the funding conditional on providing that information, it would be good if the resolution could also reflect who the information is to be provided to and who then makes the call that it is appropriate to be able to do it. So could I suggest that that the chair would be of the board would be able to make that decision, and we could word the resolution as such?
Yep, happy with that.
Okay.
Can you do your magic wording, Samara, with that?
Do your magic wording,
Yeah,
Samara.
and Janice will assist me with that.
I'll
just to
confirm
make
it and
sure
then we
it's
can get it
tight.
back out to you for them.
Yeah, fantastic.
So that was just to confirm that was $500 that we were
Yeah.
granting them.
Yeah. Do you ever put a time thing on that? So they must supply this information within the next 7 days. Or is that a bit harsh?
No.
Mm.
No, I can, if they would like them. I wouldn't pay the money. The money would
Just
go through probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. That's that one done and dusted. Now, do we want to work through the other grants applications, or has everybody read them? And
Yeah.
does anybody have
Amicus-
any discussion on any of them?
Yes, Amicus, I had no issue. It's actually the softball club. I just wanted to have
Yeah,
and
that was my
um,
one
Yes,
as
and if I
well.
could, can I just update you on a couple of things there?
Yeah,
So with that application, when I received it, I did obviously it does state that people applying need to live in the Ōtaki area, but it is up to the chair's discretion. So she did say we could put it into the mix. I did ask the people applying if they could give me the numbers on how many people from Ōtaki attend the club, and I received that information I think last week. So from I think it was 12.
12. Yeah, but out of how many?
yeah,
People from Ōtaki attend. So that's the one thing if that I try and make sure that if it's a Paraparaumu club or something that they are wanting money, to clarify if they have members from Ōtaki, because that's always helpful to know in that process as well. Hopefully that helps.
okay.
Do you mind if I go ahead here, Christine?
No, go Cam, go for it.
So again, just as what Samara said, they are outside of the Ōtaki ward, so therefore they actually, this application fails on that. They're also going to the another board. Oh no, so that's are going to the other boards as well, because I'm sure they do have members from all of the different areas. The only thing I was contemplating is, we have our own fantastic Ōtaki sports club. Do they have any plans to put in softball in place, and are we stepping on their toes by giving money to another club that's based in another area? Like, I don't think so, but I would just, I would prefer the money to go to the Ōtaki area rather than just 12 people out of them members, which then travel down to this facility, not in the Ōtaki area.
Yeah, we don't have to give them the full amount either. So I mean, we can sort of peg it back a bit to allow for those 12 players that do happen to play down there. I know softball's actually quite a big sport in this country now, and we do have, we've been the world champions, and it's it is a really big sport for a lot of people, and it's actually a big sport for the lower socioeconomic area, I think, more so than cricket and soccer and even rugby to a certain degree. So I think probably there's possibly even more than 12 players in Ōtaki that actually play softball. Whether they actually belong to the club or not, I don't know. But as far as I can see, there's been known. Shelley's probably better versed in this than I am because she's with the school board and everything. But I don't think there's any softball club or any form of softball team actually in Ōtaki, to my knowledge anyway. Is there?
Yeah, well,
do you know of anything, Shelley?
I don't know of any teams. And so for me, I think it's giving opportunity to kids in Ōtaki that might want to play softball.
Yeah.
We're not strapped for cash. And so, you know, supporting sport in any form for kids is good. If they came back next year, maybe we'd reconsider if they're, you know, or they might consider bringing it to Ōtaki. But I'm not aware of any clubs or any teams here. So
yeah, this is where we're actually missing out on having the face-to-face with them, because we can ask these questions, and okay, we could have them zooming in and probably ask them as well, but it's not as easy. But I'm just finding we're sort of missing these vital bits of information by having Zoom meetings, and thank goodness our next one won't be, hopefully.
It's actually in the application. It says that many of their members reside in Ōtaki. We are working hard to grow the membership base and hope to have Ōtaki teams again. So that would say to me that they don't currently, but that they would. And I think if we're to approve the funding, it would say that it would be on the basis, on the understanding that they would continue their efforts in having a presence in Ōtaki.
Yeah, and again, their accountability report can, help us with that.
And
What they're doing.
And as Shelley said, it's not as if we're strapped for cash at the moment. We don't want to throw it away either.
Yeah, and that was my concern. I'm not against the application.
No, I just feel that it's probably a minority sport in Ōtaki, but we're actually helping sort of promote it a bit if we actually agree to this grant, I think. And it's a bit like the hockey thing at Ōtaki College. I mean, they were all travelling down to Paraparaumu for hockey. And then Andy put in that all-weather surface at the college, or they had it done, and that's helped with our hockey players up here. So who knows? Maybe by promoting this and helping, we might actually be able to actually promote something further up here and get a baseball or softball diamond at Haruatai Park or the Domain or somewhere like that. For goodness sake, we've got the land to do it. So it could progress from this, maybe. Who knows? But
James has his hand up. I'm
that's
not
my
sure if he
topic.
asked the question.
Okay, James.
Oh, look, I had a question around the Amicus application. So if you want to progress and vote on this particular softball one, then I can.
Now, I think we'll just go through them one by one and vote on them as we go. It's just going to be easier in the long run.
I'm happy to
move it on, and I'm happy to. And I'm happy to second it.
Is that the softball one?
Yeah.
Softball one.
For 500?
Yeah. If it gets kids doing sport and off the streets, I'm for anything like that.
Yep, I'm a yes as well.
Chris, you
And
need
even
to
if it's only
vote.
12, even if it's only 12 from Ōtaki, that's 12 to start with, and they could drag more in and help more kids actually get into this thing. So yeah. What we need is a train service between Ōtaki and Paraparaumu so they can get down there easy.
So you need to vote on it, Chris.
Yeah, okay. Any more discussion on that? Okay, do we all want to put our little thingies, whatchamacallits up for voting? Oh,
Green
gosh,
ticks.
yeah,
or
just
thumbs.
I've got a thumb. There we go. I'll put my thumb.
Awesome.
That's 2.
Yep. Well,
Yeah,
James and I
everyone
put
put their
yeses.
thing up. So the next application would be the Amicus Club.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
And
So I'm,
Chris, I think someone had a question around that.
hold on, I'm just ticking these other ones off as we go. Okay. Cam, question on the Amicus.
No, that was James. Had a question.
Oh, James.
Look, I know that we've supported this one previously I think on a number of occasions. I can't quite make out the wording under list any grants received from the board. It said that they had difficulty spending the 2019 grant, which was two years ago. And obviously because of COVID and their trip cancellations. Is it said that they've only just, I can't make out that word after just our 2019.
So due to COVID and the age of our members, we have had difficulty in spending our 2019 grant. We have only just applied our 2019 subsidy after 3 trip cancellations.
Applied, okay.
Yeah. So they actually had booked them all. They just hadn't managed to have them because they just kept getting, I actually bumped into Bruce Heather in the supermarket and he was sort of apologetic that they hadn't actually done it. And they kept trying, and every time they'd have their trip booked, that nasty COVID person thing had come in, and they'd have to move it yet again.
So
I don't think they should be actually penalised because of the fact that they haven't actually been able to use it, and they're now applying a couple of years later.
Well, it sounds like they have. If they've just applied, they've just spent. So I mean, I'm okay if they've just spent it. I just wasn't so much. Okay, if they hadn't spent the last one and they're applying for another one.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't make out what that word was.
They were very they did keep in touch with me over the year, just letting me know that they had scheduled. So I had that on my radar as well.
Yeah, I know they've been very conscientious about actually keeping in touch and making sure that it was all kosher and above board. So, okay, does anybody have anything else to discuss in regards with Amicus? Or do we want to put it to the vote? No hands up. Okay, would somebody like to move that?
I will do that.
Okay, somebody would like to second it? Okay, thank you, Shelley. Any further discussion on that?
Nope.
Okie dokie, passed. I was finding it. What's that one? Okay, now next on my list is neutering cats. Spaying and neutering pussycats.
So again, another organisation that's outside of Paraparaumu, but I think they do, from the reading in that, they do a fair bit of work in Ōtaki itself, and the actual cause itself is a great one. It's one of my
actually
pet peeves.
I don't think there's a conflict. I know Annette Buckley from years back. She used to be a train buddy when I used to commute into Wellington. She was part of my train group. You'd probably, I don't know if you'd remember her, Samara, because I think she used to get when I got the later train. So, yeah, but she lives
in Te Horo, if that helps.
Yeah, well, she used to live down in Paraparaumu. No, she doesn't. She lives in Paraparaumu.
Is it? Okay.
121 Long Drive. Yeah. But she's very much into the, the SPCA and getting cats neutered and everything. So, and I think she works in liaison with Riverbank vets and the other vets in the area as well. So, I mean, if it helps stop breeding cats, I'm all for it, because when we used to live down Te Horo Beach and up the gorge, there were feral cats all over the place.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with that one.
Any other discussion on that, James? No. Okay. Would you like to move that, Cam?
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'll second it. Okay, so we're done. Okay. Now I mean, don't laugh, but I sort of looked at this next one and I thought, IVF. Somebody wants money for in vitro fertilization. And then I read it properly.
Yeah. Te rangihui henare.
Yeah, but it sort of caught my eye. So this is probably our first actually overseas sporting one for 2 years, I'd say. So it's quite exciting that actually kids and that and people are actually starting to think about now starting to go overseas and do these sporting events now, that almost, like a generation of kids going through secondary school, like we used to get the 5th and 6th and 7th formers applying to go overseas, and we've had 2 years of none of that. So these kids have really missed out on a lot of world experience. So it's really nice to see that it's all happening again. And I mean, I'm quite frankly, I'm all for this one, but it's up to you guys if how do you feel about it?
Happy to move the full amount if there's support.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I'm
Yep, very much so.
certainly happy as well. Yeah, so move James, seconded Cam. Okay,
Yep.
and that's me a thumbs up as well, Samara.
Having gone to a sporting world champs in the past, $7,000 is cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Can I just confirm it was James moving it and Cam seconding it?
yeah, was
Thank you.
right.
If I could just update you, so after I do all those payments out for those grants, I'll send the board a breakdown of what's left for the next meeting, which is the last meeting of the financial year.
Yeah.
I also encourage you, if there's any people out in the community that is looking for funding, to have a look at the criteria and the applications, and yeah, just to sort of put a little shout out that there is community grant happening with the board, and if people would like to apply, they
Okay,
can.
fantastic. Because the next meeting's our last one before the end of the financial, isn't it? And you'll update us how much money we've got. And Janice, this 20,000 that we're supposed to have extra, what can that be used for? Can we carry it over into the next financial year if we don't use it? And is it at our discretion as to what we want to use it for? And could we give a lump sum to something, or does it have to be used for a board activity?
So we've had the team taking a look at that in recent weeks, and I just want to acknowledge that due to our own workload pressures, we haven't been able to progress that earlier in the financial year, which now leaves us right at the end of the year, and we're only now forming a view on the mechanics of using that money. So we are looking at whether or not we can make a special case for it to be carried over, and I don't yet know whether that will be the case. It would probably require a resolution of the council to make that happen, so I will need to come back to you on that. But because it's funding that sits within an operational budget in the same way that your grant funding does for the board, it needs to be spent in line with the council's financial management practices and things like that. So that's the piece that we're working on at the moment. How does the board actually make decisions and then instruct staff to be able to dispense the money on their behalf? Obviously, with your grant budget, it happens via a grants application process. So that's the piece that we're working through at the moment. In terms of what it could be put to, that'll be up within the framework of what the council's financial management practice needs to be. That will be up to each board to decide. But there will be some things that it couldn't be spent on because it's an OPEX budget. So, for example, it couldn't be used to buy capital equipment or anything like that because it's not a CapEx budget. So you'll hear more from us in the next little while, but we're just trying to explore get the carryover piece sorted before coming back out to you all.
Yeah, so it's looking like, because it's, time is of the essence now, it's looking like we probably will be able to carry it over into the next financial year.
Well, I'm, talking to my colleagues about whether we're in a position to recommend that to the council. The other factor at play here is that most of the boards are still sitting on reasonable amounts of grant funding available between now and the end of this year, and that wouldn't be able to be carried over. So there's already quite a bit of money available through community grants for most of the boards for the next 6 weeks or so. The other piece is that there is a lot of other grant funding being explored in communities at the moment. So the council's community grants fund is underway. Creative Communities has just been, there's Think Big grants for youth underway. Because of COVID having delayed the timing of a few things, we've just recently had the social impact grants as well. So with COVID having delayed the timing for a few things, there's a whole lot of grant programs all butting up against each other, meaning potentially there's more money available than there are applications for it too. So that's also something that we would take into account when looking at how to make the case for carrying over that localism funding. But as I say, it's something that will require a resolution of council if my colleagues agree that we should be recommending that to council.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Janice. That's clarified it a bit anyway. So Shelley, you popped, oh gosh, who was that? Shelley, you popped your hand up.
Yeah, Shelley.
So I would imagine, to me, the extra money would be for something outside of what we have funding for already. It would be more projects that the board would be doing within the community or supporting. Is that correct?
Potentially.
Like, it's not really like what we've got now, which is just grant money to give out to organisations, individuals. It would be more kind of a project stimulating.
Yes, so there would still need to be
Wi-Fi.
there would still need to be a way of executing that funding though. There still needs to be transparency around it. So the board would need to essentially set some priorities for the funding or agree an approach to what you were going to seek proposals or interest or whatever in. And how this board decides to do it could be quite different to how the Parapara Umuraniti board decides to do it, because the needs of the different communities are likely to be different. What it couldn't be used to do is to require work from council officers that's not in an existing work program or that kind of thing. You couldn't, I don't think the intention was that you use it to jump a council priority up the queue, and I think jump a project up the priority queue. And if you're talking about $20,000, that's unlikely to make a huge difference. It's about enabling community to respond to community needs and to explore projects that are of value to the community that might not attract funding in other ways.
Thank you. Okay, so we all reasonably clear on that. So
James has his hand up.
oh,
I don't mind if you call me Jane, Samara.
I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
So look, I won't have a view because I think, although I'm a member of the community board, I think that it should be the board members themselves as community board members as opposed to your ward councillor. But in terms of being helpful or trying to be helpful, Janice, if the board, for example, wanted to do something like a mural or something like that, that could be something that could be considered. Or something else that sprang to mind was the support for Ngā Hapu about doing the housing assessment type stuff in terms of a locality-based assessment for Ōtaki specific that they were unable to get Crown funding for. That could be another example of an area where they could step in and partner.
Correct. Funding community-based events, where we know that at the moment the council's funding for events is very much at that major events level, and there is a gap for smaller community-based events. So again, that might be another area that this board identifies as a priority. Perhaps another board wouldn't identify that priority, but that's the whole point about boards being able to have a bit more scope to be able to fund initiatives that reflect the needs of their community.
so like when we've got the statutory holiday for Matariki this year for the first time, so if perhaps we wanted to combine with Maori land or something like that to do something spectacular for Matariki, that would actually fall within the boundaries of it?
I think so. And I think events is probably a space that staff would include. What we're going to do is pull together a list of essentially the guidelines that from a financial management practice everybody needs to stick within, and then a list of things that boards could consider to start the conversation around how to spend it, and events would definitely be one of them, and partnering with other agencies to do it is definitely a good thing to be considering.
And
we'll come back with more information in the next few weeks about all of this.
So for something like that, we could partner with the schools and everything, and perhaps try and organise something for that. And okay, that's food for thought.
Chris, I think Shirley had a follow-up question,
Yeah.
and then you've got Cam.
Okay, Shelley.
So just with regard to what rules the board set, that would have to be changeable. Whatever council comes up with, that would have to be changeable because boards change. People change within the boards, priorities change, ideas change. So just flagging that would have to be something.
Can I just clarify that I think the rules that Janice was talking about were council rules, parameters that meet the financial guidelines. I think your point, Shelley, is more around what the themes or projects or whatever the community board wants to do may change, but the guiding principles from council staff could potentially remain.
Yeah. Cam, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it would be interesting to see the guidelines from Janice, because the thing that actually sprang to mind for me was something like, helping out the local schools with a truancy officer, or something like that, and whether that falls within the guidelines. I mean, that might be the Ministry of Education, so outside of our jurisdiction. But it may be something that we need to have a bit of a little get together in a think tank about once those guidelines are available, and see where we go from there.
Yeah, well, I think perhaps we should have a little sit down and a chat together, or over a cup of coffee one day, and just see what we think, and get all our ducks in a row. Once we've got the guidelines from Janice and we know where we can go and what we can do, then we need to sit down as a group and go through it and just work out our best strategy.
The $1 million question there, Janice. Have you got a timeline for the guidelines?
Look, they're mostly done because they're not big, because community boards don't want council staff telling them what they should do with this money. We realise that. So this is not pages and pages of rules that we're trying to create. I do want to resolve the carryover point with my colleagues first, though, before we come out, because it's fairly fundamental to your ability to actually be able to make good with this funding, because most boards don't have enough meetings left in the financial year now to hurry up and spend this funding this financial year. So as soon as I've resolved that, we'll have some advice and guidance ready to come out to you.
All right, thanks, Shelley. That's great.
Chris, Shirley's got her hand raised.
Shelley.
I just wanted to say, so we really don't have any guarantee that money that was in the long-term plan for this year will definitely come to us, because we're on such a time limit.
Oh, look, I think it's fair to say that if the carryover isn't possible, the team and I will look at what we can do to ensure that there is some way of trying to spend that money before the end of the financial year, even if that means we have to talk with you about whether or not you want to stick in an additional board meeting to be able to make some decisions, and then get out into the community to find some proposals for it, or that kind of thing. So we definitely have options to make sure that even though there's only 6 weeks of the financial year left, we could still move with it. But being able to make a legitimate case for carrying it over, which is difficult. We tend not to carry over operational funding for good reasons. That would still be my preference. We've just got a few more details to tie off before I know whether that's going to be an option. But definitely we'll work hard to make sure that the money can get out there into the community regardless.
Oh, great. Okay, well that's good. We wait in anticipation, Janice, to see what we can do with it. And I'm sure myself and the rest of the board will be only too happy to have another meeting to actually spend that funding and spend it wisely. So that'd be cool. Okay, so that's all that. Right, so I think we are now up to
Confirmation of minutes.
members' business, aren't we? So I'll go first because I haven't got much to say, because I got COVID in the middle of the thing, and plus the school holidays. I went to the Ōtaki memorial service and laid a wreath on behalf of the community board. It was a very different service from previous years. Because of COVID, we were seated reasonably far apart from everybody. There was no cup of tea or anything afterwards, so you couldn't actually socialise, but it was still, and there was no singing. That was the worst bit. We weren't allowed to sing, so that was the really tough bit, that, you know, sort of not having that side of it. But it was, as usual, it was a beautiful day. I don't think I've been there and it's been a rotten day yet. They seem to manage to turn the weather on every time for that function. So we had the AGM of the Friends of the Rotunda. So that's another year under our belts, and we're really, really lucky. DOC have really come on board. They're doing a lot of stuff at the health camp now to actually get it's functional. Hopefully Kiwi Can are going to take over the lease of some of it. That's still under wraps at the moment. It's not definite. It's got to go through the iwi and everything as well. There's still a few T's to cross and I's to dot in regards to that, but that's looking very hopeful, because it'll give a presence at the health camp. They will use the house, they will use the buildings. It means there'll be security there. They will take over looking after the grounds and doing all sorts of other things, and it can only be good for Ōtaki, I think. They're going to be, from the things that they do, it looks very, very positive. So really, really hopeful in that regard. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to the RSA Anzac Day wreath laying. I got Marilyn to do that for me because I was stuck at home in quarantine, so I couldn't go to that. And I went to the 3 briefings today on the Taylor's Road interchange, which was very interesting, the Blue Bluff, which was very, very interesting, and the speed limits thing around schools and everything, the road safety. So James went to those as well, and Cam was at 2 of them, and they were actually very much Ōtaki orientated, which was great. So really enjoyed those briefings. And basically that's all I've done, other than I've got a new grandchild as well. So having spent time with him and my daughter, that was my month of April and May. Who would like to go next?
Shelley's got her hand up, Chris.
Shelley.
I just wondered if anyone was going to give a bit of feedback on the Taylor's Road interchange
Oh, that's messy.
briefing
Yeah.
this morning.
Go pull up the presentation and have a look at it.
Yeah, do you want me just to briefly
It's
go over it, Chris?
very complex.
Well,
And I think personally, I think we're going to get a lot of pushback from Peka people, and if it goes through, and yeah. But anyway, that's my personal opinion. But no, have a look. It's on the LG Hub, I think, Shelley. So pull it up and look at the presentation, and then happy to discuss any of it with you once you've looked at it.
let's just put it this way, that they are incredibly complicated situation, Shelley. The original plan was built, and now they have put in a half interchange, which is just looks ridiculous.
Shelley, I need to take a call from you if you look through the presentation and have any questions. It is, to be fair, quite complex to explain via a Zoom hui. And I think that in itself speaks to the mess that Waka Kotahi have sort of offered up there, and the different issues there. So if you have a look and you've got any questions, feel free to give me a holler. I'm happy to talk through it. Long story short, our technical staff at council have concerns around the proposal. Unfortunately, Waka Kotahi have gone out and consulted on this proposal before they've got sign-off from us or support from us. So that's disappointing as well.
Right. Okay, so who'd like to go next? James.
I'm happy to go next, Chris.
Oh, I forgot to say, I've also been to two Elevate meetings in the last 2 months too. And I gave away Easter eggs.
I'm happy to go next, Chris, because it might
Yeah, go for it, James.
questions that others have throughout. I have circulated my report back, albeit late, to Samara, and so I'm sure she will forward it on to you all if you have any further questions from that. I'll skip some of the things that have been raised already. I had Three Waters down there. Look, I've struggled to put words around where to from here with that. Essentially what I've said is the government, despite the opposition and feedback, have indicated that pressing on. I'm yet to be convinced that it is what's best for our community. And essentially what I've said is I'm still of the belief that our council could achieve the same outcomes that the government is trying to achieve. The big question for me is, which I raised with our chief executive, was around what sort of form of consultation. And it's a tricky one because the government, it's a government project, it's their thing. Essentially, they should be communicating it and consulting it. But as I found as a councillor, there is many within our community that have a view and expect us to be seeking those views as well. So I'm not too sure where we will go to from there, but it's an ongoing discussion around our table. The local government commission determination on the representation review, as you've probably heard, it's published its decision. I'm disappointed in their response, not because it wasn't what councillors put forward in response to the community. I'm disappointed particularly for two reasons. Throughout the entire 16-page document, the word iwi is mentioned once, and that is referring to the Local Government Commission or the Local Government Act guidelines. This is despite the fact that we conveyed the feedback from Ngā Hapu in their verbal submission, or in speaking to their submission, around their connection to Tohoro. And now Tohoro was formed part of the Waikanai ward under the new proposal. The other aspect that I'm concerned about is the new model has a councillor split that will have 3 councillors in Paraparaumu and 2 in Waikanai, which could be even further exasperated if the 3 ward councillors were elected from that area as well, and or including the mayor. This could have a significant impact on the voice of smaller communities like Ōtaki and Paikakariki, the 2 communities that were identified in the work that Empathy did around being distinct communities of interest. So if Ōtaki feels like it's the poor cousin now, I'm concerned at what might be in the future if you've got 6 or 7 elected members from the Paraparaumu Waikanai area. So I really wanted to bring that to the community board's attention if you haven't sort of picked up on that yourself.
Have to work on getting the district-wide councillors from Ōtaki then.
Yeah.
Well, again, Cam, when you look at the ones that we have here, they've moved into the area after being elected. And if you look statistically from a voting base, Ōtaki don't historically have strong voter turnout. And equally, we do not have higher populations than the other 2 areas. So if 10% of Ōtaki vote, it's
Doesn't make for much.
700 people, depending on your population figure. And you just do the sums in terms of Paraparaumu and Waikanai, and you can see that we're at a disadvantage before you even go to the polls. But anyway, that is what it is. Housing, I don't have a lot to say there, not because it's not an important issue, but essentially we've progressed 3 significant pieces of work around the housing needs assessment, the housing strategy, and the draft plan change for intensification provisions. If you haven't, I encourage you to have a look at the link that I've added in there with the housing needs assessment, which paints a pretty grim picture of the situations within our community, especially Ōtaki. For me, it was no surprise, but again, it's quite sobering hearing some of those circumstances within our community. So I'll put a link there to the report, which is in the council meeting this Thursday. Just a wee note there, as you've probably seen in the media, we're currently in the process of recruiting a new chief executive, and that process will likely take a few months, with Sean Mellon currently as acting chief executive. We had another briefing today in terms of Blue Bluff, and I'll try and keep this brief in the sense that the staff have progressed a number of pieces of work around Blue Bluff. They've looked through all the options, including closing the road as an option. They hope to reinstate the walking access in the coming weeks, and then they'll bring a paper back to council on the options, including the costs in terms of reinstating the road there to the Ōtaki Forks. The next one is around car theft and crime. I had some concerns raised within the community around theft in Ōtaki. I think it's important to stress that it's not just an Ōtaki problem, it's a district-wide, and even a national problem. However, I have, the other thing I've said there is primarily it's the responsibility of police, not council. They're better resourced and they have the legal mandate in terms of responding. However, we have a role around community wellbeing and advocacy, and I've got a meeting with the police tomorrow actually to discuss some of the concerns that had been raised, and I've also raised it with the mayor and so forth. So certainly bringing that to their attention and interested to know what the issues are and their response. There's been some further work around Te Horo Beach around the flooding, around the sump network. I've touched on to Ōtaki. You would have read that there was a $3.2 million increase in the budget there. I raised that not to put the spotlight onto Ōtaki, but to bring to the board's attention that there will be construction cost increases that impact other council work across our CapEx and infrastructure program. And so you may see either delays or rescheduling of some of those works or increased budget. So there's some Ōtaki specific projects that haven't been costed yet, but equally could be impacted by that. And as noted in my report back, 34 of the projects put to the Crown Infrastructure Fund have seen significant cost escalations. The social impact grants, there was a number of Ōtaki-based initiatives that were granted funding through that, and that's in the link, a list of those recipients that I've put through there. And there's the separate Ōtaki-specific fund is being considered and will be, the successful funding proposals should be known soon. And then lastly, the Pika Pika interchange notice of motion, I finally got confirmed wording for that, and we'll be putting that to the next available council meeting once I get the required signatures. And that's it from me.
Thank you, James. Cam.
Mine's going to be pretty quick as well, because between 2 weeks of kids daisy chaining with COVID, then unfortunately a father-in-law falling ill and subsequently passing away. I've not really been out and about very much. As mentioned, I was at the Blue Bluff and we lost the other meeting today, but those have been covered by other people, and that's actually largely it for me.
Thank you. Right, Shelley.
I've just got a few questions really. Just one is there any update on the boat club, and should we be putting the boat club issue onto our action list so that we get a report back every meeting? Is there any follow-up from you, James, that was brought up last meeting?
I'm happy to respond to that other thing whether Janice was from a staff perspective. So I'm not aware of any progress from the last meeting, Shelley, other than the commitment from Mike that he was progressing that. The dealings that I've had with Mike to date, if he said he's going to do it, he's going to do it. So I would imagine that within the time frame that he indicated, he will have something back to the boat club. I've probably got more confidence now than ever, but I see Samara's got her hand up, so she may have an update there as well.
Head's falling off. So I had received an update from him around that. It's only short. He has said here we have prepared a draft agreement with the club and are currently finalising details.
Good.
Oh, great. Okay. So I sent some questions to Janice, but a few of them I'll chase up myself. But I did have a question around the land purchased on Rangiora Road. And what the plans for that. Maybe I haven't been privy to it, but could the board, if the board wanted it, she suggested the board ask if they want a report back on what the plans for that land were in the future, what the timeframes were. I'm quite interested to know what the plans are, if anyone else is.
Yeah. Happy to ask that question.
So maybe for the next meeting, Janice, could we just have a little briefing to the board about the Rangiuru Road purchase and what the plans are? James, yep.
I see Janice is unmuted, so do you want to go first, Janice? Because I don't want to steal your thunder if you might have more to update than me.
I was just going to encourage Chris as chair to follow the process set out in standing orders for how she can request a report or an item for the agenda. I can work with you offline on that.
Okay, great. We'll do that.
So all I was going to say was I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't or wouldn't do that, other than what was published in the media release hasn't essentially changed that I'm aware. I'm happy to be corrected, Janice, but the council staff are doing work in the background, but there is, for example, there's no housing designs or plans. There's a lot of steps that need to go through that process before we even look at what the development looks like on that space. So as far as I'm aware, it's not that there's been no work being done in the background, but from the media release around the purchase and the intent, nothing has really changed. And so I guess the question for me is whether there's value in staff time, putting staff time into a report, but I'll let you chase that up, Chris, because I don't want to discourage you from doing so.
No. Well, I'll have a chat with Janice offline and just see which is the best plan of attack for it. And
so I think
I'm with James. I don't want to waste staff time. They're busy enough as it is. Something simple, or just
It doesn't have to be a full report.
No.
It doesn't have to be a big time-wasting report, but it would be nice.
Two sentences.
It would be nice to be kept abreast of what's going on.
I guess I'm encouraging you to use the framework that exists for boards to be able to ask for updates on things like this and to be able to expect to get an answer. And as Councillor Coates has said, I don't know that there's been terribly much progress going on behind the scenes that you're not aware of, but in asking the question and making the request, then the answer might well come back, actually, there's not enough to warrant an entire report, but how about we give you an offline briefing or something like that. So I think it's right for the board, if this is a matter that's of interest to the whole board, to ask staff to come back with some information, but let staff, the relevant staff can then give some advice about how much there is to know and whether a report to a meeting or an offline conversation is the best way around it.
Okay, thanks, Janice. I'll touch base with you next week. James.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry, Shelley, just to respond to that. It could even be, Chris, that a staff member briefs the board on the intent and the vision, so that you have just a general understanding of what the intent is for the site. And, in terms of, here we are here, where's my hand? Here. And, here, by the time we finish, that's what it could potentially look like, or who we could potentially partner with, or, how it all works in that. Because I think what I'm hearing is that's more what the board wants to know is what the vision is.
Well, the thing is, the council don't have the money to develop housing, so it would be interesting to know what the plan is. Well, I don't know, they might have some secret stash. The other thing is that I
don't think so.
The land that has now been sold on Riverbank Road, the industrial block, has that been sold now?
I'm not aware that the sale has concluded.
Okay, it's under contract, I understand.
Again, I'm just slightly cautious because with sale agreements and so forth, we know we do need to be careful in terms of settlements and confidentiality. So until it's actually, publicly signed, sealed and delivered, I'm not aware of anything. I'm not telling you, Shelley, but I think it's probably
I just wondered if it has, it would be good to have
I'll put it this way.
Information on that too.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. I'm not aware of it not selling.
That's a good way of putting it, James. That's very diplomatic.
Could I just confirm, if you wanted the Ōtaki Boat Club stuff, as Shelley asked prior, put onto matters under action?
Well, I don't know if we really need to at the moment, but if it's actually all starting to go ahead, I think probably...
It probably should have been on there about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It's
about the stage where it'll be coming off, I think.
Well, why don't we put it on next time if it is not resolved?
Yeah.
And the only other thing is, I'm interested, Christine, in the meeting down at the river with the MPs and any report back on that.
I couldn't go, so Marilyn went for me, and she's not at tonight's meeting. So
what was the purpose of it?
it was to try and get funding for the shared path.
To link the shared path to
Link it up, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And unfortunately, I was working that day. I had a catering job all day, so I couldn't get there. But Marilyn went, and she was going to report back, but she's not here tonight.
I wasn't at that one, Shelley, but I went because I didn't get an invite to it. I was invited to the solar farm with the MPs as well. So my understanding was they went to a number of different sites within Kapiti. And you may know that, but I thought it was helpful in terms of context.
Cool. Okay, that's me.
Well, Shelley, I'll touch base with Max, and I was going to see him at the last Friends of the River meeting, but I was in lock-up, so I couldn't see him, and he's quite a hard man to get hold of. But I'll touch base with him before our next meeting and just see if I can get an update on what happened.
Cool.
I would have thought he would have reported back to me, but he hasn't. And Marilyn hasn't said anything either, so I don't know. Right. So that's everybody's, but okay, so we're up to confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. I'll take it as read. Everybody read the minutes? Any matters arising from the minutes?
I've got a few, Chris.
Okay.
Page 18 of the report, page 1 of the minutes. It said Glen Prince confirmed that the toilet block by Ōtaki Bridge will be returned to its existing condition. Its existing condition is terrible. I think it probably the minutes meant to reflect it's either its original condition, or to bring it up to standard. I think I'm not too sure either or. But they've certainly got a commitment to actually reinstate it to be fit for purpose.
Mm.
I'll update that in the minutes.
Thanks, Samara. There was a couple of others. Just sorry, it was hard to annotate because it's embedded in the report. Sorry, team. I'm just trying to find it. This is like painful silence. Oh, right. So the last two bullet points under my report back, it said that I helped present to the Future of Local Government panel. That's not correct. I attended we had a presentation from the Future of Local Government. I did help present to the Local Government Commission. So I think those two have just gotten mixed up a little bit.
So attended the Future of Local Government panel and presented to the, yeah, cool. Janice is clapping and got her hand up. Oh gosh, Janice, what are you doing?
That's your boss, remember, Samara.
I know. I'll give her a tutorial tomorrow on Zoom.
Apologies, I'm not trying to clap my hands. I just can't deal with getting rid of the applause. There we go, it's done. Councillor Coates, are you sure you didn't present to the Future for Local Government Review panel? I'm pretty sure you did.
Honestly,
alongside Councillor Holbrow.
Honestly, it's such a blur. I thought that was the commission, but was that around
No, you did both, and you did a great job of both of them. But
oh man, wow.
Councillor Halliday is nodding his head too, so I don't think I'm imagining it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you can keep that comment in this month.
Too many meetings, James. Too many meetings.
Apologies, Samara.
It's okay. I've only got one mistake, so that's all right. And we need someone to move and second the minutes.
Okay,
Chris.
I'll move the minutes.
Oh,
Take.
hang on.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait. Yes.
Nope. Janice back.
Sorry. There was one other matter relating to the minutes that I think Shelley was going to raise.
Oh, yes, the declaration of interest. Shelley, in regards to the college.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, Janice. So after the meeting, I realised that I should have declared an interest in the college as being a Board of Trustees member, and I just asked for advice from Janice. So I had no part in preparing that submission for to come to the board. I didn't even know it was coming, and I should have declared my interest, and I did second it. So I'm happy to be removed from the minutes as a seconder. No, not allowed to do that. I'm happy to take advice from Janice on what I should do about that, because it wasn't intended.
I've just noted in the minutes, if you're happy for me to say, Janice, that that you'd raised that you should have declared an interest, in just saying that your decision was not influenced by your position in the board, and that's just noted in the minutes, so we can
For
go back
tonight's
to that.
meeting.
Yeah, and everyone's happy with that. I'm sorry, it was a brain freeze.
So we took, Shelley raised it with us fairly swiftly after the meeting, and we took some advice from the legal team, and they were of the view that there was no need to revoke the decision, which is what would have been required to remove Shelley as a seconder. There was no need for that. It was low risk, given that Shelley didn't have an interest that was particular to her. It was the same interest that any member of the Board of Trustees would have. And that the decision had been made in to the benefit, of the school community. So from a legal perspective, it was felt there was no need to change it or ask you to reconfirm the decision. And Shelley, having raised it tonight, just closes the loop in terms of transparency around the matter.
Yeah. So if I do it again, just poke me or throw a book at me.
It's easy to do, Shelley. It's easy to do.
So Chris, we just need a seconder for the minutes.
Okay. Someone like to second the minutes? Thank you, Cam. Oh, what's the bloody agenda in there? Okay, so we're up to matters under action. So there's no further discussion on the minutes. All those in favour?
Sorry,
Okay.
just a quick question, Chris. Do we talk about the accountability reports back at all?
The matters under action.
Should we have talked about the?
No, we're about to do
No,
that.
I'm talking about the accountability for community grants. Or has that gone flown past already?
Just take those as read normally. It's just sometimes they actually come and present. So it's just a matter that it's part of what they have to do when they get a grant. They have to do an accountability report back. Unless you've got a problem with one of the report backs, no.
Well, there's something going back to August, and which is that kids needs dads thing, and there's no report back received from that. So I was just, is that Samara? Do you chase them on that?
Yes, no. So what happens is I chase them. So there was an issue with the, if I remember correctly, I'll just need to check and come back to you tomorrow. But I think because of COVID, that got cancelled, because I think there was maybe when it was scheduled a lockdown last year. Around August. So I think they were looking at something similar, but I'll just need to go back and I can flick you an email. Okay. So what happens every couple of months, I follow up on the accountability reports.
Okay, and have we got a time frame for them to actually hold it, or before we say you must give the money back?
Normally it's within 3 to 6 months, but there has been a little bit of leniency with COVID happening, and obviously, for an example, Amicus had a bit of probably a year and a half. So I get to the point where I think after 3 or 4 times I've reminded them that they need to send me an accountability form. I just note that they haven't returned it. So if they ever apply again, we have discussions around the process of when you get a grant. So yeah, I do.
Cool. Thank you. That was my question.
Chris, with the matters under action, are you happy if we take them as read and then I give you some updates from
Yep.
some of the things that happen
Absolutely.
around that? So this isn't on the matters under update, but there has been some issues around the Tasman Road Exaloo. So there's been several comments received and phone calls about the repair of the Exaloo and Tasman Road, which sustained damage, fire damage due to a stolen car crashing into it. So the heat of that generated from the fire caused major damage to that toilet. There has been a delay in gaining the specialist parts for this because it's an older model. We will be receiving the parts probably, I think, it was yesterday. So hopefully that facility will be recommissioned and back in service for public use on the 23rd of May. If there are any issues around that, then I'll feed an update through to you. Windstone Lakes, there's no change from the last meeting. Staff are engaging with the overall management plan. Civic Theatre, there is no further update. The council flats in Ōtaki, the refurbishment program is ongoing, so there is no major concerns around that to report. The Haruatai Park signage, staff are working through this request and intend to re-engage with board members as they work through the finer details. So that may involve me setting up a meeting with the board and staff concerned, so you can just go through discussions of that. The Stride and Ride program for PP2O, council staff are abreast of developments and will eventually incorporate into collateral. In the meantime, the CLG is the primary place for PP2O issues. I've had no further update on the Ōtaki Beach road stopping process. I have asked if there's any update. I've briefed you about the Ōtaki Boat Club just before. The site at Haruatai Park, which was formerly the Ōtaki Playgroup. Staff have discussed the possible site at Haruatai Park with Energize Ōtaki, Lee from there. The building needs significant work before it can be occupied, and there is other groups also interested in the building, so staff have undertaken to keep in touch with Lee as work progresses on that building.
Great. Well, thank you. I tell you what, Samara, I am so pleased about that toilet down Tasman Road, because I swear Peter Jensen, who they have the blokes do a sort of a working bee on a Wednesday, which is ladies golf day, he stalks me around the bloody golf course. He keeps asking me about that toilet. So tomorrow when he stalks me, I'll be able to tell him that.
Just say it'll be hopefully done before the end of May. Chris, Shelley's raised her hand.
Shelley.
I thought the Ōtaki Playgroup building was owned by the Playgroup. I've got a list of the buildings owned by the council. I didn't think it was on there. But is it owned by the council?
I'm pretty sure it says site, this is an update from Mike's team, site at Haruatai Park, former Ōtaki Playgroup. So if we're doing work on it, I'd assume we do it, but I can follow up with Mike on that.
Because I've got a list here from 2020 and I can't see it on the list, and I thought it was owned by the Playgroup.
I can follow up with Mike on that.
Okay.
And that's not actually because I've ever been part of the Playgroup. I just thought it was. I don't know.
I'll follow up with Mike tomorrow.
Okay, so we have gone through all the agenda items. Does anybody have anything of significance or mind-blowing stuff they wish to discuss before we close the meeting?
James has his hand up, Chris.
James, oh my gosh. Okay.
Just one, I'd raised the issue of the crime within the community. You could equally apply what I'm about to say to other topics, but the community boards through the representation review spoke very strongly about their role in terms of working at grassroots within the community, representing the community, working on local issues and so forth. So I do put that challenge back to the board, to this board, and in other instances to other boards. When there are things going on within the community, what role do you play? There is significant concerns from within the community around these matters, around youth as well. And so, I guess it's one thing to challenge the council through the representation review process. It's another thing to actually put that into action around, what are we doing? What are you doing as a board, as opposed to just grants on the ground within the community when issues like this come up?
What are we doing as a board? Yes.
Yeah, well, and you're very lucky.
You're part of it as well, James.
You're very lucky to
Yeah,
actually get a meeting with the police, because I've been trying for months and they just get stonewalled every time.
The problem though, Cam, is that the issues come to me as a councillor, and there is a board there that have a role. There's a number of you on the board that say you're well connected within the community. So, I look, my heart's in the right place. I'm genuinely saying to the board, what are you, what can we do in this space when there are issues and the community's crying out for action to take place? Now, it could just be that the board plays an advocacy role. It could be a role in terms of listening to those concerns and then reaching out. In terms of my connection with the police, Chris, I have no greater connection with the police than you. I think it's a shame that we don't meet as regularly with the police as we used to. The mayor does have a direct connection to the police in his role. I simply sent an email to our local sergeant and said that these concerns have been raised and can we talk about them? And I got a response back. So
that's good to know.
And sorry to clarify, I said I'm meeting with them. I've got a phone call into them tomorrow. So I said, look, would you want me to pop in and see you, or is it easier by phone? So it's no full-on meeting. We're simply catching up on the phone. I'm going to raise the concerns that have been raised. I'm going to ask them whether those issues are unique to Ōtaki. What do the statistics look like? Are we seeing an increase, or is it just more on social media and a few other related issues? But again, I put the challenge out to the board. Could you be playing a role here? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And you'll share that information with us, James, or do you want one of us to be part of that phone call as well then?
No, good point, Cam. I'm happy to. First of all, I'll loop back to the individual that raised it with me. I guess to put some context around that, someone reached out to me around, just through my councillor Facebook page, around the number of thefts that were popping up, car thefts particularly, within Ōtaki, and what are the police and council doing? As I said to you earlier, the frustration for me is whenever there's an issue, whether it's a lack of doctors, whether it's policing, whether it's a lack of public transport, none of those three are actually our primary responsibility as a council or any councils. And so we're not funded nor resourced or even have the authority in those particular spaces. As I said, we do have an advocacy role. So I've reached out to the police, and then I'll go back to this individual and just report back in terms of what the police say. But in some sense, and I've written in my latest column, we actually have a local MP probably who's better positioned to respond in terms of policing and policing numbers and so forth. So yeah, it can be a bit frustrating when the lights go out and people ring and ask what's the council doing about the power that's
out.
Shelley's
Well,
got a
if
hand
you
up.
think it's relevant for me to be in on that as well, I'm happy to help.
Thanks, Cam.
Shelley.
So I have tried to follow up because I wasn't invited to the meeting that Guru held here with the police. And so
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I've asked since then what has come of it. And then I also, in my questions to Janice a week or so ago, asked, and Janice referred me to Guru, who I emailed today. And basically his response was, ring the area sergeant yourself. So, I think I've tried to get some answers or some feedback, but yeah, maybe I agree we need to be more involved.
Well, I'll give him a call next week and just see if I can jack up another meeting. It took a long time to get the last one that Marilyn and I went to. That was probably about probably before the last lockdown.
Remembering though, it could be a meeting with your community.
Yeah.
It could be a meeting with groups within your community. It could be discussions with your community patrols. Could be looking at ways. I mean, you've got your $20,000 here. It could be looking at ways to support your community patrol. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But again, I throw that challenge out there in terms of, you know, what more could the board be doing? You want more roles and responsibilities, and you want to be supporting your community more. This may not be the right thing, but you know, equally it could be something else out there as well.
Yeah, the community patrol's a whole new beast now too. So without Errol in charge, I don't know who's running it now, but from what I can gather, it's running a lot smoother.
The thing is also, James, if there's been contact, which there has been, with the meeting that Guru had and whatever contact, all we can do is ask, or we're actually going against everything. So if we're not getting any feedback as a community board from anyone about what is going on or who they've contacted and what the outcome is, which I've tried to get, then, you know, we seem a bit disjointed if we're not going to work together.
Yeah, I agree with the point, Shelley, and it's not my place to discuss what was in the meeting with the police that was organised between Guru and the police, but it wasn't around these issues. That was specifically reporting back on the, you know, I think the one thing that's okay to talk about is the effectiveness of the beach campaign that the police did. So although I appreciate your frustrations around that previous meeting, I guess what I'm more saying is, you know, when things pop up within the community and at the moment it's people's concern around crime and Carthius within Ōtaki, you know, do the board respond to that? And if so, what does that look like? And it may not even be, you know, anything to do with that meeting that Guru had with the police. It could be around initiating your own thing. In terms of working still with the council and the police, but saying, look, we actually want to have a community discussion around, you know, are the areas that we can strengthen, support or improve to assist the police. I know, I think maybe using two examples, when Andre Baker was the chair, we had a community hui around getting around the whānau, that there were 3 families in particular that were at the root of some of the issues that we were having. And then myself, when I was chair, we had some community discussions around some of those activities and as well, and what the council or the police or a joint response could potentially look like. So yeah, some food for thought.
Yeah, thank you, James. That's given us something to think about for the future anyway. Okay, does anybody have anything else they wish to discuss? Or Martin, you waving your hand, or is he going? No, he's gone. Did you want to say something, Martin? No. Okay, anybody else? Okay, well, I'd just like to thank Janice and Samara for sort of putting our meeting together and getting all this organised. It's great, and it will be even better to see everybody in person at the next meeting. I'm so looking forward to it. It's just so much easier.
Thanks, everyone.
Right. Meeting closes at
Thank you, everybody. So we close the
8:40.
8:37.
I've got 8:39.
Okay, we'll go with your clock then. Mine is a warehouse clock after all.
Mine's a council laptop time, so hopefully that's right.
All right, see everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, bye.